I'm sure you find it as amazing as do the rest of us that the great majority of people have to learn things the hard way. It's only natural to think that if a great discovery were made in a particular generation, all the succeeding generations would know about it and utilize it for their own good. But in many things, such is not the case. It's true with inventions and discoveries which obviously affect our lives, but it frequently is not true when it comes to the great laws which determine the direction of our individual destinies. One time, a group of laborers was hired to work on a farm. These people came from a very small, remote village where motor vehicles were still very scarce. They were enjoying a new experience of being transported on the back of a truck when they came to the place where they thought they were supposed to get off. Well, without giving it a thought, apparently, they simply stepped off the back of the speeding truck. Now, fortunately, they fell on a soft dirt road, not a paved highway, but even then, the results of their unconventional method of disembarking were, to say the least, surprising. They went bounding, spinning, sliding, and cartwheeling along the dusty road for quite a distance before gravity and friction, working together, finally brought them to an astounded halt. Well, none was seriously injured. In fact, by the time the terrified driver got back to them, they were laughing uproariously about the whole thing. The truck driver, in explaining the incident later, put the blame on their never having ridden in trucks before. Well, that's the obvious answer, but not the right one. The amazing circus tumbling act on a remote farm road had been caused by ignorance of a law that operates the same whether a truck, a boat, an airplane, or any moving body is involved. Sir Isaac Newton gave us the law, and it goes like this. A body in motion tends to remain in motion until acted upon by an outside force. When the workers stepped off the back of the speeding truck, they were going the same speed as the truck itself. The outside force was gravity, which pulled them down to the road, still traveling at the same speed. And, well, you get the idea. They had been hurt, confused, frightened, and turned upside down because of their ignorance of a law of physics. They might have been killed. Now, all over the world, there are millions of people who are being hurt, confused, frightened, and whose lives are turned upside down because they don't understand the principal law on which everything in the universe operates. The law of cause and effect. This law has been written thousands of times by the greatest minds the world has produced, and as a result has appeared in many forms. For our purposes, it might best be put this way. Our rewards in life will always match our service. It's another way of saying, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. And it's been written in many ways, in every language on earth. I like to think of this law in the form of a giant apothecary scale. One of the bowls is marked service, and the other is marked rewards. Now, whatever we put into the bowl marked service, the world will match in the bowl marked rewards. If any person alive is discontented with his rewards, he should examine his service. Action, reaction. As ye sow, so shall ye reap. What you put in will determine what you must get back in return. So simple, so basic, so true, and yet so misunderstood. If a business is not expanding to the quick and exciting tempo of the times, it must examine its contribution, its service. If a person is unhappy with his income, he must examine and reevaluate his service. Never before in the history of the world have human beings been so interdependent. It's as impossible to live without serving others as it would be to live if others were not constantly serving us. And this is good. The more closely knit this interdependence becomes, the greater will be human achievement. We all seek rewards, and we should understand that rewards come in two forms, tangible and intangible. That is, rewards include the money we earn, the home we buy, the car we drive, the clothes we wear, and they also include the way we feel, our happiness, our peace of mind, our inner satisfaction, the people we meet and enjoy. But remember this, whatever it is you seek in the form of rewards, you must first earn in the form of service to others. All attempts to abrogate, to sidestep this law will end in failure, frustration, and if maintained long enough, ultimate demoralization. We can see this frustration on every side. We can see it in the tense, strained, and nervous faces, in the mountains of tranquilizers which are consumed every day. And we can also see it in the slack, bovine-like faces of those who have found the whole thing too complicated and have simply given up, surrendered to the push and pull of circumstances. How much of this do you suppose is due to misunderstanding or ignorance of this simple and wonderful law of nature. It's my belief that a great deal can be traced to this cause. Now, do you understand this law, fully understand it, intellectually and emotionally? If you do, you can chart a wonderful course through life. Just as the field worker stepped off a speeding truck, just as a child will put his fingers in the way of a closing door, just as a speeding driver discovers he's not going to make the curve, how many times have you been confounded because you acted contrary to the rules, not just the rules of man, but the rules of nature? How many times have you been in the position of the man who sat in front of the empty fireplace and said, "Give me heat, and then I'll give you some wood"? People seem to be divided into those who understand that the wood must be put in before they can expect warmth, and those who feel they should get warmth whether they put anything in or not, or who feel they should get maximum heat from too small a supply of wood. A man's discontent can be said to be represented by the distance between what he has and what he wants. Once he's achieved that which he wants, the odds are good that he'll want still more, for that's the way of people, and that's good. That's a healthy sign. Constructive discontent is what gives us our continuing upward spiral of civilization. So do this if you haven't already. Determine what it is you want. Look objectively at the place in which you now find yourself. Consider the distance separating you from your goal, and determine ways of increasing your service so you will build a bridge across it. This puts thinking and creative activity into living. It also assures us that our goals can be achieved by individual effort. A person's world can be compared to a plot of ground. It exists, it's there. It has inherent within itself an amazing potential, and it's prepared to react to man's every action. In fact, it must. Now, whatever your job happens to be, think of it for a moment as this plot of ground. Planting the plot is only the first step. We are given the plot, and that's all we should be given. It's what we do with it that will determine its degree of greatness and success. It's like the story of the preacher who was driving by a beautiful farm. The fields were cultivated and abundant, with well cared for crops. The fences, house, and barns were clean, neat, and freshly painted. A row of fine trees led from the road to the house, where there were shaded lawns and flower beds. It was a beautiful sight to behold. So when the farmer working in the field got to the end of a row near the road, the preacher hailed him and said, "God has blessed you with a beautiful farm." The farmer stopped and thought a moment and replied, "Yes, he has, and I'm grateful. But you should have seen this place when he had it all to himself." You see, the farmer understood that he had been blessed with a fine farm, but he was also aware that it was his own love and labor which had brought it to its present state. In thinking of ways of increasing your service, read books on your specialty. Read what others have found to work well for them. But at the same time, think of original and creative ways of increasing your service, ways that are unique with you and the way you are. Each morning and during the day, ask yourself this question: how can I increase my service today? Knowing that my rewards in life must be in exact proportion to my service. Now do this every day, and you will have started to form one of life's most valuable habits. Horace Mann wrote, "If any man seeks for greatness, let him forget greatness and ask for truth, and he'll find both." You see, you can cut away all the confusion and complications and nagging worries and vague, half-formed fears by returning to the great truth, the great laws, the great verities on which all success, all accomplishment, the whole world is built. If you're worried about your income or your future, you're concentrating on the wrong end of the scale. Look at the other end. Concern yourself only with increasing your service, with becoming great where you are, and your income and your future will take care of themselves. In William James' essay on vital reserves, he wrote, "Compared with what we ought to be, we're only half awake. Our fires are damped, our drafts are checked. We're making use of only a small part of our possible mental and physical resources." Stating the thing broadly, he went on, "The human individual thus lives usually far within his limits. He possesses powers of various sorts which he habitually fails to use. He energizes below his maximum, and he behaves below his optimum." All right, how can we correct the situation? William James gave us the answer. He wrote, either some unusual stimulus fills them with emotional excitement, or some unusual idea of necessity induces them to make an extra effort of will. Excitement, ideas, and efforts, in a word, are what carry us over the dam. All right, let your goal represent the excitement. Your ideas and efforts will weigh down the service end of the scale, and the rewards must and will follow. They'll be yours. They are yours the moment you realize this truth.